Welcome back, friends. Today we will talk about value-based prioritization. We will talk about prioritizing features. You need to think like a product owner while going through this particular lesson, because here we are focusing on how to prioritize one feature or one requirement against other. Agenda for the day or for the session. Factors in prioritizations. We will discuss about what all possible factor one product owner should consider while prioritizing the features. We will talk about a way of prioritization by prioritizing theme or stories on the basis of desirability or on the basis of numbers, financial returns. And we will discuss about minimum marketable feature, which is like a prerequisite, which is like a must-have feature for a product. So factors in prioritization. In general, these are the four factors which plays a crucial role in prioritizing. The financial value, the value of that feature, the amount of returns or the amount of customer satisfaction that feature returns, the cost involved. So what I will get and how much money I have to spend. The value is coming from the customer value, the end user value. The cost is coming from the development team, how much time, how much resources it takes to develop that particular feature. So usually we talk about cost benefit analysis. So we do think about what are the financial benefits and what are the cost involved while prioritizing a feature. The other two factors which are also sometimes becomes quite important. Amount of learning, like if we do this particular feature now, what all things we can learn which can make our future estimation or future exploration more stable. So if you want to remove some level of uncertainties from your project, you may want to take a few of the stories, you may want to prioritize few of the stories which can help you in learning about the upcoming features or even learning about the customer behavior. Sometimes you want to prioritize few stories upfront because you want to learn how your end user react to it. The fourth dimension, which used to be a very talked dimension while prioritizing, risk removal. So by prioritizing, by taking few stories upfront, what amount of risk you can remove from your project. Risk could be a technical risk could be a business risk. So if you have a risky story and which requires a mitigation or mitigation plan, by taking it upfront, you may have a reason to schedule that story a bit upfront in order to get risk removed from your project, in order to get some uncertainties getting removed from your project. So these are the four dimensions: value, cost, risk and learning. Now there used to be a too much focus on risk. Initially, when we were thinking of rational unified processes, we used to think of prioritizing the riskier item first. Now when Agile started becoming popular, people started thinking about only value and avoiding risk. They started believing that let us do the juicy bit first. Now you can take your own approach, but it is usually recommended that we should judge the priority on the basis of risk and value. The stories, the themes which gives high value and which are riskier should be done first. So if you talk about quadrant, there is a value in one dimension, there is a risk in another dimension. So if there is a story which returns high value and which is also a riskier one, so because it is returning high value, you cannot avoid it. You have to do it before you deliver your project. So you should prioritize those stories first, and then you should pick the stories which has high value but low risks, and then low value and low risk. You should try to avoid the stories which has high risk but low value. Maybe a story is like which makes some kind of configurability, some kind of extendability in your system, which may not be that much desired by the end user, But once you build that, it brings a risk of vulnerability and technical challenges. So you should avoid those kind of stories which are not giving end user high value and riskier in nature. So the stories which are high at risk and low at value should be avoided. And do remember the principle, agile principle of simplicity. We should focus on maximizing the amount of work not done. We should only focusing on the work which gives more returns, more customer satisfaction. Now you may have many dimensions, you may have weightage factor, and your prioritization matrix or prioritization list may have factors like value, cost, risk, learning, and on the basis of these factors you may have a mechanism to drive the final ranking. The product owner may have a mechanism to drive the final ranking. So he may have stories which are ranked at the value, which are ranked at cost and risk as well as learning. He may have a formula where he takes a value cost ratio as a one dimension and risk and learning as another other factors, and then combined or develop a final ranking. Some company may have a weightage factor involved. They may give a weightage to a risk, they may give a weightage to a value, and on the basis of those weightages and on the basis of ranking you give to your stories, you may get a final ranking which takes care of all these four dimensions. So point here is that while as a product owner you are prioritizing your product backlog, you need to consider various dimensions, and these are the four dimensions which are frequently considered because they are universally applicable. So in your project you may have some other dimensions also which is specific to your business case, but these are the four common dimensions which always universally usually applicable to all of the projects. Now we discussed about prioritization. Now the second topic is prioritization on the basis of desirability. Now we spoke about value, we spoke about cost. Now it is not so easy to calculate value. The prioritization desirability, prioritizing based on desirability is a kind of subjective, it's a subjective prioritization of your user story. So there are 2-3 models which facilitates a product owner to prioritize features or stories or theme based on desirability. So I am using these terms again and again, features, stories and theme. Now when we do a prioritization, it is usually difficult to do a prioritization at a invest story level. Sometimes product owner may do his prioritization at the level of theme. So the prioritization might have been done at the level of theme. So prioritization desirability has 3 models, especially when we talk about this particular presentation. There is a model of customer satisfaction. It's a Kano model of customer satisfaction which talks about that there are 3 types of features. One type of features are threshold features, or you can also say a must-have features. These are the features which customer expects bare minimal in the software or in the system. And then there are features which are linear in nature. As much you give those features, as many you add those features, customer satisfaction will increase linearly. So the threshold features are, they don't increase the customer satisfaction at that extent. By adding a threshold features will not increase the customer satisfaction, but the absence of threshold features will decrease or dissatisfy the customer. The linear features are, as many features you add, the customer satisfaction will increase. And then there are exciters. Exciters are customer is not expecting those features in your product, but if he gets those features, his satisfaction raise at a higher rate. So this model talks about that you need to classify or you need to identify your features, your stories on the basis of these 3 dimensions. You need to think about, is this feature a threshold feature? Is this a feature a linear feature, or this feature an exciter feature? So threshold features like the presence of security, like if you are making a software, end user will expect that it should have a proper authentication mechanism. Linear feature could be the performance, as fast you respond to the customer request, the better it is. So if you decrease the response time, customer satisfaction will linearly increase against the effort you are putting into the reduction in customer performance or response time. The exciter could be, you may give some social plugins, you may give some export features, a good dashboard which customer was not expecting, not considering them as an essential requirement for their usage, but if he gets a few good analytical dashboards, it helps him to analyze the data faster. So those could be an exciter features which are not coming in their normal business flow, but they can add a good amount of business value if they exist. Now the second model is Karl's model. It is again a weighting model. So it talks about that we should, here this model is only considering value and cost. So this model, as we spoke about 4 parameters of prioritization, this model give a method of prioritizing on the basis of value and cost. Now the interesting part of this model is that it not only talks about relative benefit of a feature, it also talks about relative penalty of the feature if that feature is absent from the software, absent from the system. So the mechanism which this model proposes that we need to identify a value point, a value number against the features in our product backlog, and we also need to, which is called the column A, the relative benefit, like how a point which reflects the benefit of that particular feature. And then it also says that we should also identify a relative penalty. Relative penalty is a number which represents the customer dissatisfaction if that feature is absent from the system. So the absence of a feature is reflected using relative penalty. So product owner should give a relative benefit number and relative penalty number, and the total value of the feature is sum of relative benefit and relative penalty, which is column number C. And the column number D is used to give a percentage wise ranking to all these product backlog item. So we just divide the value number with the total of that particular project sum and give a percentage wise contribution ranking. So which feature contribute at how much percent in customer satisfaction or customer value if we say the complete product backlog is 100. So the column D gives a percentile number to this value point. The same way we consider the cost. We pick the cost, which is usually maybe coming from the story point estimation. We put the cost number, and similarly we calculate the percentage cost distribution or percentage cost consumption by every feature. So the column F is a percentage cost if we consider the total project as 100. And then the priority of a feature can be derived on the basis of value to cost ratio. So value to cost ratio gives one way of prioritizing your features. So this model talks about, Karl's model, weighting model talks about that we give a weightage to a value, and then we also have a cost points, and then we have a value to cost ratio, and on the basis of value to cost ratio we calculate the priority. So we discussed about Kano model, which is talking about linear, threshold, linear and exciter. We talked about Karl's model, which is talking about giving a weighted number to a value as well as to cost and derive the priority on the basis of value to cost ratio. The third model, which is simple and frequently used, initially introduced by DSTM, it is Moscow. So this model talks about that we should, as a product owner should classify the features into 4 buckets: must have, should have, could have, won't have. So must have are the features which product owner thinks must be included before the product can go to the end user. Should have, they are the features which are good, they give a good business value, but they are not critical for the launch of the project. But they are good, they gives good value. Now could have, they are nice to have, and could potentially be included. So the could have features are nice to have features, but if the time permits, we should involve them. Won't have features. So won't have features are those features which were requested in this release but explicitly excluded from the release. So in a product backlog, you have a big list of the features, you as a product owner. So you have a big list of the features, and when you are thinking, when you are planning about an upcoming release, you identify the features which won't be present in this particular release, and those features goes under won't have bucket. So these are the features which were requested by the end users, which were requested by the business, but product owner is taking a decision not to include them in this particular release, and explicitly making that distinction clear that these are the features which won't be included in upcoming release. So it's a good simple way of classifying the feature in 4 buckets. Must have, minimally we need it before we launch the product to the market. Should have, these are the good features, if time permit, these are the good features, should be included. Could have, nice to have, if time permit, include them. Won't have, explicitly I am saying that this will not be included in this particular release. Now the upcoming section is prioritizing on the basis of number. So financial prioritization, let us calculate the monetary value of the feature and then prioritize on the basis of number. So when we talk about number, it is about profit. So we can generate more, we can keep more money if we generate more revenue, or we cut the cost. So financial value of a feature is driven by, is it generating money or is it saving cost? So the money which is getting generated out of that particular feature could further classified into 3 categories. Am I getting a new revenue which was not with me before, or I am adding some features which will add to my existing revenue stream? And retained revenue could be that if I don't add this feature, I am going to lose the clients. So these are the 3 classification which can done in the more revenue category. When you say cut cost, what kind of operational efficiency I can achieve if I introduce this particular feature in my software. Now when we talk about dollar number for a feature, it's a bit tricky, because how to get that forecast, how to get number, how to know that what money this feature can save or generate, and how to compare one feature or one theme against another, and then how to consider that the time distribution of the money, like some features are giving you immediate returns, some features are giving you a return after 5 years. So how to consider the time distribution or time value of money? Which feature gives us more returns? So these kind of questions can be handled by using various numerical or mathematical calculations. Now how to get that forecast? This part is something which is handled by product owner. So product owner may have a way of calculating the future forecast for revenue as well as operational expense reduction. Those methods, those tools are excluded from this particular presentation, but that is something which is a part of business case analysis. So when product owner does the business case analysis, he visualizes that how the revenue is going to be increased by adding this particular feature into a software, or by launching a new software into a market. From our focus point of view, we need to understand, once we have a number, then how do we calculate, how do we identify which theme makes more sense and should be prioritized first. Time value of money. So time value of money gives us a tool, gives us a mechanism to factor in the time dimension in a financial returns. So if I am getting $5,000 after 4 years, what would be the present value of it? So future value is a value which would be at a future time present value is a calculating that future value in a present money time, in a present money. So if we calculate a future expected revenue in a present value term, we need to discount that future incoming of money as per the interest rate or as per the discount rate, and we should also factor the distance between present time and the future time. So there is a formula, like it's a simple interest rate formula. You can just reverse the interest rate. If you want to understand the future value, you can just reverse the interest rate calculation. Like if you invest 1000 rupees today, you get say 4000 or 5000 rupees after 4 years. So after 4 years is the 4000 rupees is your future value, 1000 rupees which you are investing today is your present value. Now how the present value is getting converted into the future value, it's based on the interest rate. Similarly, if you are getting 4000 rupees after some time and you want to know what is the current value of that money, you can discount that 4000 rupees by the time dimension, and you can identify that okay, it means this much money in today's term. So it could be like that. If I promise you to give 4000 rupees after 4 years, then you can identify okay, if I have a 10% interest in my bank, what does that 4000 rupees after 4 years means? You can discount the 4000 by 4 years, and you can identify that okay, it means this much money in today's term. And that is what the formula talks about. We have a present value is equal to future value divided by interest rate by the power of time. So n is a number of year or a number of periods, and I is a discount rate. So for this particular calculation, I am assuming 10%. So if you are getting a 5000 rupees, 5000 US dollar after 4 years, and if you have a 10% rate, you can calculate the present value by 5000 divided by 1.1 raised to the power 4, and that gives you a number something 3424. Now you don't get calculation questions in your exam. The only expectation from you is that you understand all these terms and you understand when they get used. And even though the calculation is simple enough, but the expectation from you is that you understand and the importance of calculating time, calculating future value and present values. Now the second term is net present value. So net present value is a sum of all future cash flow in and out. So it's like a project. You need to calculate a net present value of a project. Let's take an example, and you know that that project will have inflow and outflow during the execution time period. Like if it's a 4-year project, you might be spending $1000 now, and after 1 year also you are spending $1000, and after 2 years you would be getting $4000, and after 3rd year you again need to spend 2000, and again at the 4th year you get the 5000. So now you have a multiple cash in and outflow, and you need to identify what, and if you need to compare two projects of such relatively complex cash in and outflow, the net present value helps you to calculate the present value and compare these two on the basis of NPV. So net present value is a sum of all the future cash inflow and outflow discounted by the interest rate or a discount rate. So here if we take an example, take a example of 10% as a discount rate, we can calculate that in and outflow of this particular example, and we use negative for outflow and positive for inflow, and that can, the calculation can give you us a final net present value which is coming as 3309 US dollar. So why do we do it? If we have multiple options like this, then we calculate net present value of all those options, and then we pick the option which has higher net present value. So from exam point of view, you should always remember, if you get a question where there are 2-3 options and they are all are having a different net present value, you need to pick the one which is giving you the higher net present value. While calculating the present value, while calculating the net present value, we took an assumption of interest rate or a discount rate, which was 10%. Now, what if we need to calculate the rate of return? So the same net present value formula can give you a rate of return if we consider the net present value 0. What does it mean? At what particular rate cash inflow and outflow becomes equal, and the rate which makes cash inflow and outflow equal is your rate of return. So internal rate of return is a measurement of how quickly the money invested in the project will return value. It's the rate of return which calculates based on inflow and outflow. So the same formula which we used for net present value, but net present value becomes 0 or cash inflow and outflow get balanced out at what rate, and that rate is internal rate of return. So higher the internal rate of return, better it is. So think of a situation where you are going to a bank and bank is just giving you that you invest this much money and I will give you this money at this frequency. You don't know, and he says that this is how we support our fixed deposit. Now you get confused, you want to know that what is the rate of return it is providing me, and in order to calculate that rate of return, you says okay, my inflow and outflow should get balanced at a particular rate, and that rate of return is that particular investment is offering to you. So advantage over calculating net present value is an absolute number. Internal rate of return is an percentile number. So it could be like if there is a big project, there could be a higher net present value but lower internal rate of return, because the amount which is involved in that particular project is high. So on the basis of the net present value is an absolute number, and internal rate of return is a percentage number. So it helps you in comparing in the term of percentage term, rate of return term. The another dimension, a payback period. So sometimes you just want to know how much time does it take to get my money back. This is a time. This is a time unit which tells you that in 2 years you get your money back. So payback period is the amount of time which that particular investment takes to return the initial cost. Now you can calculate the simple cash by adding the in and out without considering the discount or a time value of money, or if you want to calculate by considering the discount rate, then you can also calculate discounted payback period, where you discount the future cash flow on the basis of discount rate or interest rate which you have in practice. So it's a simple tool, like it's easier to for a manager to get an idea of a particular investment. So there are multiple dimensions. Net present value gives you a absolute number, internal rate of return gives you a percentile number, payback period gives you a duration. Now in practice, if you are making a project decisions, you may be using all these three, and you may be using other ways of evaluating your features, your projects. And a decision based on one parameter could be difficult, because it's not only NPV, but you may also need to consider the internal rate of return. You may also want to consider risk. You may also want to consider what is a capital amount involved in this particular project. For example, if my company is of $100,000, even if the net present value of a project is 10 million, but I won't be able to execute it because that goes beyond my threshold, my risk appetite. So in practice, these parameters does help, but the decision is made on the basis of combining these factors and putting some other subjective and objective criteria. But from exam point of view, you need to remember that higher the NPV, the better it is. And when the question is giving you a net present value, please do not consider the time dimension which is specified in that particular question. For example, it is giving you two projects to choose from. One project is taking 10 years to finish, the other project is taking 5 years to finish, but the 10-year project is having higher net present value. So since it has a higher net present value, you just need to pick that. You should not be assuming that no, I have to think about payback period. So once you have a net present value given, always pick the one which is higher, irrespective of time it is taking, because the time dimension is already taken care in while calculating the net present value. Now the internal rate of return, the higher the internal rate of return, the better it is. You are not going to get a question where IRR and NPV both are given and the question is asking you which theme or which project we should select from, because those kind of problems cannot be solved by just reading that particular description. You need to know more details about the case. And similarly, the payback period, the shorter the payback period, the better it is. The sooner you get your money back, the better it is. So while prioritizing the themes, if you consider the financial values, you may consider calculating the net present value or internal rate of return or internal or a payback period of that particular theme or a feature, and then decide which one you should take or which one you should prioritize for the upcoming release. Now there is another term, return on investment. It is like loosely defined term which talks about how much money I get on this investment. So it is like a gain divided by cost. So it's like a net profit divided by investment, or gain from investment minus cost. So it is like net gain divided by the investment cost. So return on investment, the bigger the return on investment is, the better it is. That's the features, the theme, the modules which gives you a higher ROI are better. They should be prioritized first. Minimum marketable feature. Now a minimum market are the smallest set of functionality. It is the smallest set. Please do focus on the word set. It's the smallest set of functionality that provides value to your market. So it is like the bare minimal the bare minimal feature the product should have, which makes it usable, valuable to the target market. The product owner should identify the minimum marketable feature of their delivery. And this is something which makes the release decisions, like release must cover minimum marketable features. For example, if you are launching a job site, what would be a minimum marketable feature? The job site should have a facility to list the job, and person should be find and search the job on the basis of listings. Now this is a bare minimal functionality. Without this functionality, the vision of a job site, which could be providing a platform where people can find their job, cannot be realized. So minimal set of the features which helps in realizing the product vision. How to identify it? There is no scientific formula for it, but yes, product owner needs to think about the goal, the vision of a product. He also needs to think about what is essential. The same way we did a desirability ranking, he needs to think that what makes the product usable and what is the bare minimal set of the features which makes the product usable, and that is your minimum marketable. It's a good idea. It's a good idea to map the minimum marketable feature with our desirability model. So we spoke about two models like Moscow and Kano. So in a Moscow we spoke about must-have features. So minimum marketable features are must-have features. If you talk about Kano model, the threshold features, the features without which the customer will not even use that particular softwares, are minimum marketable features. So every product should have identified minimum marketable features. Why we are discussing them? Because these are the features which should be prioritized upfront. These are the features which should be developed in the initial iteration. So if we have a time challenge, if we have a velocity challenge, if we have any uncertainties coming in our release duration, we should be able to deliver minimum marketable features, and that is why we are talking about it. So minimum marketable features are very important while we prioritizing our product backlog. We should target to finish our minimum marketable feature sooner in our iteration plan, and the release plan is driven by minimum marketable feature. The first release may have majority of minimum marketable features and only few, or say should have 30 to 40% should have features in the first release. You may have 70% minimum marketable features in your first release, and as you proceed in your release plan, your the features you may start taking care of should have, could have in your subsequent releases or subsequent iterations. So this completes our session. We spoke about factors in prioritization: risk, value, learning, cost, desirability. We spoke about models, threshold, linear, exciter, Moscow, and we also spoke about weightage method, model where we were giving a weightage to a value as well as to penalty, and calculating a probability or calculating the ratio of value divided by cost. And then we spoke about financial prioritization: present value, net present value, future value, internal rate of return, payback period, and return on investment. And then we spoke about minimal marketable feature. So let's do a quick recap. Generally, what factors plays role in prioritization? Value, cost, risk, learning. Net present value calculated by adding present value of the future cash inflow and outflow. If we need to select a project having different net present value, which one to select? The one which has higher net present value. Give an example of threshold feature for a job site. Feature to create job, feature to search job. Does minimum marketable feature and release planning has some relation? Yes, the release should include all minimum marketable feature. Who identifies themes value? Product owner. This complete session is about product owner. What is meant by cost of theme? It comes from the development team. Usually the story point estimate which we give to a feature represents the cost of theme, like aggregation of story points estimates which are given to the stories at a theme level gives you a cost of theme. Now if you look from risk value perspective, which feature should we develop first? High risk, high value. Now this completes our lesson on value based prioritization. Thank you.